channel.
Hey, you know what time it is, No Press fam? Welcome everyone to another episode of The Beatdown, the segment and channel where two worlds collide. I am your host, Class. And as always, guys, if you guys enjoy our content, you know what you guys can do. You can share, you can like, or you can subscribe to our channel. When you guys subscribe to our channel, you know what you do? You guys are building our empire and allowing us to provide you guys with even much more greater content for you guys to enjoy. Alright, moving on. So today's episode is going to be an interesting one. We're continuing on because it's still October, still doing some kind of Halloween based theme, and today we decided there'd be no different. I will be representing Marvel Comics' The Lizard. Alright, now let's get into the brief origin story of Dr. Connors, aka The Lizard. Okay. Dr. Curtis Connors, aka The Lizard, used to perform surgery for wounded soldiers on the battlefield until one day an explosion went off and he lost part of his arm in the process. He then went to live out an ordinary life, with his focus now in life to do research on reptilians' abilities to regenerate limbs. No harm in that, right? He went to work on a formula using reptiles' DNA to make it possible. He tried it once on a rabbit and immediately thought, what's the harm in trying it now? So he tried it on himself. That harm he would regret, as he became a human/reptile hybrid with his intelligence lowered in the form, causing Dr. Connors to remain like this for some time until Spider-Man heard about the lizard and was called out by Jameson's newspaper press to do something about it. He did by visiting an expert in the matter, Dr. Connors, who he didn't realize was the lizard. When Spider-Man got confronted by the lizard the first time, he also happened to discover the grieving widow, or the grieving wife, let's say, not widow, aka the wife. Sorry, said that wrong. He asks her what happened, and then he uses Connor's lab to reverse his formula, but before he could inject the lizard decides to take the formula himself to create his own army of lizards. Spidey eventually gets the serum in him through his mouth, no less, and works, but later on it proves to be unstable, so he turned back into the lizard every now and then, but the lizard would be much more smarter than the original as time went on. And that is the brief origin story of the lizard. Alright, now we're getting into power, abilities, and feats. Alright, for powers, and yeah, this is according to the comicvines.com. Speed, stamina, agility, reflexes, claws, create molecular friction, thick, scaly skin, difficult to penetrate with ordinary weapons, enhance healing, regenerate lost limbs, strong tail, super sharp teeth, telepathically command an army of reptiles, intelligence in human form, and in certain comics, the lizard himself is also known to have his own set of brain. And now here are the feats according to Ivan the Unstoppable on YouTube. The feats are: he can run about 70 miles per hour, he can command a crocodile, and even Man-Thing. Interesting, right? The lizard at one point in the comics was able to get a crowd of people to get into berserker mode just by being near them, able to hold down beast, rip a crocodile jaw into two, strength, throw cars, he can throw trucks, chunks of building parts, destroy a tree with his tail, and the list goes on. When Spider-Man had the black symbiote suit, which amplified his strength, he still wasn't able to really match muscle with the lizard. He clawed the face of an enchantress, who is an Asgardian in the Marvel realm, was able to dodge Spider-Man, Morbius, and the Human Torch himself. Okay? Human Torch, Supernova, let's remember that. Took punches from Wolverine with his adamantium brass knuckles, fought on multiple occasions Spider-Man, and gave him a run for his money. Alright, so let's get into the end game. So, let's start off with the lizard. The lizard, well, obviously we're talking about the lizard, but let's talk about his skin in general. It's much more, in some sense, a little stronger than Killer Croc's skin. Yes, Killer Croc has some thick skin as well, but the lizard's shown to be more capable of stronger bullets and being able to be bulletproof to certain degrees. And on top of that, you got to remember, if you don't remember or you haven't seen it, there are certain parts in the comics where Human Torch actually grabs the tail of the lizard. And if you know the Human Torch, he's just entirely made out of fire. So if the Human Torch grabs your tail, you would think it would burn your skin. But with the lizard, that wasn't really the case. He was still capable of throwing down with the Human Torch, even if he grabbed his tail, and he was having that hotness to his advantage there. So you can make the argument that thick skin wise, the lizard might be able to handle more than Killer Croc could. And then there's this argument. His ability to call upon other reptiles or Man-Thing. We're gonna put Man-Thing aside because Man-Thing would be hard. If the lizard decided to call Man-Thing, game over. I mean, Killer Croc's not gonna be able to take the lizard strength and Man-Thing. Man-Thing is pretty damn strong. Beside the point, if he calls the other crocodiles to his aid to help him, the numbers game does kind of take Killer Croc over advantage, or it gives him an under advantage, because if you remember in the comics, or if you don't know, Aquaman and him fought before in the ocean, and Killer Croc did have some advantages. He was able to hold his own against Aquaman, but Aquaman again had sea creatures to help him in his aid to throw down with Killer Croc so they can stop him. So in that sense, you could say the same thing about crocodiles with the lizard. The lizard can go into a lake with Killer Croc and then have the crocodiles help him in his aid to throw down with him, and back and forth, and then the numbers game will overwhelm Killer Croc in that way. Alright, so there's also the fact that he is a lot smarter than Killer Croc in his form. In the comics, he has grown a little bit more and more intelligence. Killer Croc isn't really scientific or anything. Yes, he's from certain ancestors and stuff, but he's not intelligent. The lizard, when he had comics growing on, as times went on, he's actually gotten smarter. So he's gotten Dr. Connor's kind of brain in himself. So he could set various traps or use an invention that Dr. Connors has that he remembers that would probably be able to put some damage into Killer Croc. Maybe even something that he knew it could hurt the lizard if an emergency situation arises, and he could use that against Killer Croc in that sort of way. And then another thing is that I would think if the lizard wanted to, he could probably take Killer Croc to an army base. Why would I take him to an army base? Why take him there? Well, his aura in the comics is able to get people to go into berserker mode. There may be a possibility that he could get the army men to go into berserker mode in his behalf and take on Killer Croc. If the lizard just goes into the army base with all the military soldiers there and then just leaves Killer Croc in there, he'd be in a world of hurt, because army with a handful of toys around them. We're talking tanks, we're talking jets, we're talking bazookas, we're talking hand grenades, we're talking heavy machine guns, we're talking extreme firepower coming your way. Yeah, Killer Croc doesn't have a chance against a berserker mode of army people going at him, and then the lizard coming out of nowhere and just finishing him off in that way. Okay, so adding the combination of the lizard is no weakling, by the way. The lizard's strength is impressive. He has shown in the comics that he can match with Spider-Man. Spider-Man is no lightweight, especially with the symbiote suit amplifying his strength. He was in those 100 category of tons lifting. So yeah, the lizard could out-muscle probably Spider-Man, which means he could probably out-muscle Killer Croc. With the intelligence combining bronze and brains, that's a deadly combination to go against in that way. But I'll even add one more point, and that of course is the healing factor. Between the two, Killer Croc has been known to show some impressive healing factor, but it's not as impressive as the lizard in the comics. Killer Croc, one time he ripped his hands off and then it regrew, but it took 8 days to do it. With the lizard, it's not always really the case. The lizard's regenerative healing factor is kind of top notch. Like, it grows back immediately because both their mutations are different. One comes from a formulated lab with the lizard's DNA, and another one is actually genetically born into him. So there's like a whole difference between them. So there might be the argument to say that Killer Croc's regenerative healing factor wouldn't be able to outmatch the lizard. So in a moment, let's say both of them ripped off a limb. I do believe that the lizard's limb will come back faster than Killer Croc, and then he could finish the job in that way using his bronze, his brains, and his healing factor. game over for Killer Croc. The lizard takes this one. Alright, and I'll be representing on this end DC Comics' own Killer Croc. Alright, now let's get into the origin story of Killer Croc, shall we? Brief origin story. A swamp near Tampa Bay, a child was born with a rare skin disease or skin condition. The child's name, Waylon, and his condition was similar to ichthyosis vulgaris. Hopefully I said that properly. With this condition, his skin would become tough and scaly. This disease, however, was more severe since it also gave him claws and teeth. The boy continued in life to suffer as his mother died from childbirth and his father had left him. He then lived with his aunt who didn't want him, and the kids on the block would relentlessly beat him up and make fun of him. Until one day a new girl came around named Emma. She and Waylon became really good friends. Like, they were tight. They were BFFs for life. And one day Emma came to Croc about helping her find a missing boy, so he did. His nose smelled the boy near a swamp, and when they found him, it was too late. The missing boy appeared to have been attacked by an animal. When they got a closer look, a gator jumped out of the swamp and took Emma. Croc went down to try to save her. Croc takes out the gator, but a little too late. Emma had passed on during the fight in the swamp, and the blood on the gator all over him. It didn't look good when the townspeople found him that way. Everyone assumed he took out the boy and ended Emma. He went to jail for it, and in there wasn't treated any better. Eventually, time in prison had him grow more distaste for humans and becoming fully formed from his mutation, the one we call Killer Croc. That is the brief origin story of Killer Croc. Alright, now let's get into the powers, abilities, and feats, shall we? Mutation, durability, an intense hatred of humanity, superhuman speed, superhuman strength, enhanced senses, fangs, claws, regeneration, regenerative healing factor, armored skin, superhuman agility, enhanced reflexes, aggressive atavism, speed, strength, swimming, and wrestling. And according to Ivan the Unstoppable on YouTube, his feats are: he can sprawl with Wonder Woman, strong enough to break an alligator's back. A few guards and Batman aren't enough sometimes to take him down, crush through jail cells, climb on the side of a building using his claws, and that's around a 50-story building, keep in mind. To escape, once he ripped off his own hands and had them regenerate 8 days later. Strong enough to rip off vaults. This vault was approximately 20 tons. Do some damage to Solomon Grundy, crush human skulls, have buildings land on him and get back up. Fought toe-to-toe with Bane and actually won one round with him. Can rip demons' heads off. Fought off giant animals from another world, like giant gorillas and all that stuff. Took a punch from General Zod. His mutation has taken him to the point where he became an actual Hydra, and even in this form, he could crush buildings with his own body. Wonder Woman can't even mess with him at this level. And with another temporary power-up, he was able to hold his own against Wonder Woman, Batman, The Flash, Aquaman, Hawkwoman, and Superman, the Justice League whole crew all at once. Some actually did the math on this, and based on Newton's force, which was 1 million, that equals out in strength to 100 tons. Yeah. Alright, so let's get into the end game. So Killer Croc did have some difficulty fighting Aquaman in the water, but he did also fight some really top tier super soldiers type characters like Katana with her sword and also Huntress in the water, and he had an advantage there. So technically Killer Croc still is a favor in the water compared to the Lizard. The Lizard isn't that much shown to have taken people to school there, but the Killer Croc has. And let's talk about strength. Between the two, the Lizard, I feel like there's a limit to that strength, but with Killer Croc, we already said he might have already lifted about 100 tons. So it's all about who can throw way bigger of an object at each other. So let's say this fight was a range fight and they were just throwing big objects at each other. Obviously they equally can throw each other a tank or something like that. But Killer Croc would have to throw something so big that the lizard couldn't even catch it, and most likely would just crush him through the largeness and the weight of it, the mass of it. So I would say that it would be about just throwing the biggest object enough that would put Killer Croc and squash him like a bug in that way, or squish him like a lizard, I guess, with a rock in a sort of way. Alright, let me make the other couple points. So, I mean, Killer Croc and the lizard are probably equal on the mount when it comes to the fighting skills department, because the lizard fought Spider-Man. Killer Croc has fought Batman and Bane. They both fought very skilled fighters. Spider-Man has his own unique style of fighting. Batman is known every martial arts known in existence, and Bane is no small potatoes. He's actually pretty tough to beat too with his martial arts skills, and he actually has a pretty crazy skills of his own. So Killer Croc and them are equally matched. Strength, almost equally matched. When it comes to thick skin, both equally matched. Pretty much on the almost same level of things. But the difference between Killer Croc and the lizard is Killer Croc doesn't have a problem with the cold. Yes. So there was one point in the comics where the lizard actually lost to Spider-Man based on Spider-Man using a walk-in cooler or something like that. So a meat cooler or something. So technically, if Killer Croc wanted to, he just needs to outlast the lizard in a cold environment, like a freezer, walk-in cooler. Take him down, walk-in freezer, and take him down that way and fight him in there until the lizard gets exhausted or just freezes and just dies in that way, or gets taken out in that way. Or what do you call it? Or he could just take him to another cold environment, like an actual environment like Canada or like Portland, Oregon or something like that. Or wherever, Nebraska, and just fight him there for a certain amount of time until the lizard gives, and then take him out in that sort of way. And then the last point I'll probably make, because there's not really need to be a lot of points for Killer Croc, because he's got just a lot of tricks up his sleeve that could over advantage the lizard, and this last point is that example. If he turns to any of those 2 temporary power-ups, okay? Now you remember, the 2 temporary power-ups are impressive. One, he can pretty much turn into a giant building Godzilla size and start crushing everything. So Killer Croc turning into that against the lizard, yeah, I think that the lizard would be damaged, would be taken down in that count for that way, because obviously Killer Croc in that size, there's just no way you can take him. And then the other one is when he took on the entire Justice League. I mean, the lizard's strong, but he's not a whole Justice League in one package strong. Like, he's not going to be able to take him. It takes more than one person in that level, on that second level. So I do believe that if he could take the entire Justice League, it wouldn't be too hard to take out the lizard. So if he transforms into those 2 next levels, or if he decides to take the fight into the water, or he decides to throw something rather larger on the lizard, I do believe those elements, any of those situations, any of those options could give Killer Croc the advantage, and he would win this one and claim the W. But as always, no press fam, it's not up to me, it's up to you guys. So if you guys liked either one of my arguments, you know what you can do. You can hashtag the lizard, or you can hashtag Killer Croc. As always, no press fam, we really appreciate you and keeping it 300 subs. Catch you guys later. Peace.